In my last few videos, I've been getting a couple of comments, and I've come to the realization that bowling is broken. And no, it's not the sport itself, it's mainly the way that we treat it. The PBA is full of elite talent, guys with over 500 rev rate, with pinpoint accuracy, and always having extreme clutch moments. But the way that the general public thinks about bowling, you wouldn't really know that. Why? Because modern bowling, especially at the league level, has made it way too easy to look good. In this video, I'm going to be breaking down exactly why I think the PBA is having issues and how we could fix it, what's broken, and how do we make people respect pros again. It's time to make bowling great again. But first, I'm going to have to ask you to subscribe. I make bowling content just like this just about every week, so hit that like button and subscribe if you want to see more. On to the video. First, we have to start with the topic that I've talked a lot about on this channel, why the PBA doesn't feel very professional anymore. Let's start with the problem no one wants to admit. The average bowler doesn't respect the pro bowler, at least as much as they probably should. And that's not because pros have gotten worse. I think they've gotten better, far better. Rev rates, physical fitness, shot consistency, lane reading, ball versatility. This is arguably one of the most talented generations of professional bowlers in history, but we all ignore it. We all look back at the golden age of bowling, and we can't really compare eras. But if you walk into your average league night and listen to the chatter, you'd think half the building is ready to hop on the tour. People saying they averaged 230 this year or shot 800 the previous week, and people smack-talking Belmonte for being a two-hander. And I think the reason people feel so bold about this is because the modern house shot is a complete joke. This is a thought and idea that's been circulating the bowling community for years. How to make a house shot harder so that people actually respect the pros. Because current league conditions are so forgiving that inflates the ego of anyone who can repeat a shot. You can miss by 3 boards and still strike. You can throw the latest resin ball and throw it anywhere right of second arrow and watch it boomerang back with skid flip action. The problem isn't people being good. It's the people thinking that they're as good as the best in the world. Because, well, the lanes are lying to them. But that's not all. I feel like the PBA needs to change just as much as the league system does. So how can we start? Reviving the PBA isn't about gimmicks or TikTok dances. It's about rebuilding the foundation of how the game is presented, regulated, and respected. Here's a breakdown of the core changes that I think need to happen. First, oil pattern reform. The number one obvious thing is it's not as hard as it probably should be. The PBA needs to completely eliminate easy scoring on all oil patterns from all events, period. Get rid of those legacy patterns or make them harder. You can leave the easier scoring events to the regionals, which I'll talk about how I'm going to revamp those in a little bit. But high scoring matches at the local level might seem fun in the short term, but they're killing the legitimacy of the tour. If you've ever bowled a house shot tournament or a house shot sweeper for like 8 games, and you saw someone average 220, that was pretty impressive. But when people tune into a title match on TV and see both players averaging 220, it doesn't look impressive anymore. It just looks like a local league night. Now compare that to the difficulty of the US Open, where every 200 is a grind and every shot is a life or death. That is how you build tension, and that is how you show the difference between elite and amateur. Make flatter patterns, longer lengths, more volume, more cliffed zones. Make bowling challenging by default, not by option, and let those who rise through it earn their recognition, much like the old golden era. Next, we have to talk about the elephant in the room, the equipment. Right now, bowling ball technology has made it easier than ever to strike, even on the tougher conditions. And while innovation is great, there has to be a ceiling on how much help the ball can provide. Some may argue that there's too many bowling balls right now, and honestly, I have shifted in my opinion. I used to think that there wasn't really, and that you can always have more, but now that I think about it, bowling ball companies produce way too many bowling balls, and they discontinue ones that should probably stay. Obviously, the PBA Tour serves as great advertising for those ball companies, so here's how you harness that advertisement. First, limit urethane on the tour. This has to come into play at some point. And to do this, I would have a limit on surface on urethane. Say anything below 1500 becomes illegal when applied to urethane. This is a direct response to the people who started using more surface after the hardness change rule. And this would obviously subtract from the early and easily controllable cover stocks, making professionals actually use the balls that their companies mass produce instead of everyone just throwing the IQ78U when they get on TV. I'm looking at you, Yesfer. To make it more consistent between brands, reevaluate the high flaring ASIM cores and set a max differential limit on them. And third, limit the number of balls per tournament. They already do this for some of the bigger events and junior events such as Junior Gold, but setting a hard cap of 4 or 5 bowling balls would force a reevaluation of what equipment to use instead of bringing a truck of 20 to every single event. This would force bowling ball companies to be a little bit more creative with what they put out, putting stuff that's more variable and can work on as many patterns as physically possible. That would not only help the amateur crowd, but it would also encourage shot making, not shot replacing. And finally, limit the use of tour reps on TV. Do it similar to the re-rack system, 2 uses per game rather than having a shot-by-shot micro-evaluation. Since pros largely do the work in qualifying themselves, this only makes sense and would rid the misinformation regarding the pro's skill level. And now, here is probably my biggest change, and it's all to do with the structure and redesigning the tour. Right now, it's a little bit muddy, so we have to create something that makes sense to both players and casual fans. My solution is to create a tour card system similar to the PGA Tour. Here's how it would work. Only the top 50 players in the world get a PBA Tour card. How would you obtain this card? Well, I would say that everyone must qualify through winning either a regional title, a national title, or winning a large-scale non-PBA event such as Junior Gold or the USBC Open Championships. The main tour card players would receive base pay, guaranteed entries, and official sponsorships from the league that lay on a much larger scale similar to NBA sponsors. You would lose your card by failing to either place in the top 10 on the national tour or failing to reach top 5 at a regional event within a year. This would force pros to not only battle up through the regional tour, but also battle at smaller events to keep local communities more involved. This would also force them to fight to keep their card rather than fighting to get there. Next, keep the PTQs, but change them to grant a temporary card instead of just letting you into one event. And I would have this set to be 3 events. Temp cards would let you keep the same caching system as you currently have, but full-timers would instead receive a bonus for making it deeper into match play than is usually required to cache. This would make it so that caching isn't a viable method, but the base contract would support it, so it's more easy to live on the tour, and if you do make it deeper and cache, you get a nice little bonus. But you lose your card, you have to go back to the grind. This makes every match matter, every pin, every week, every tournament. It also makes watching qualifying worth it again, because now there's real consequence. If it's the last tournament of the year and you don't have a top 10 secured, you're going back to the regional tour. Furthermore, in the telecasts, they're kind of outdated. We need casual fans to tune in and understand why it's difficult, not just that it is. We also need better presentation. Explain what an oil pattern is and why a specific one may be more difficult. New casters every few events with pros getting on the mic more often. We had a little bit of that this year, but I would like to see more of that. Let players wear simpler, cleaner jerseys for visual branding, not the NASCAR-style sponsor spam. Add louder microphones on the player to pick up emotion, the footsteps, the pin reaction, the self-talk, instead of the current system where you can technically hear them, but the casters are way too loud. Make it feel like F1, UFC, or even the WWE, with tight branding, emotional drama, and clean storytelling. And now that we've talked about the PBA, let's go back to the house shot problem from earlier. The average league shot is ruining the game. And no, that's not hyperbole. Let's break it down. House shots do 3 things that are harmful to the long-term impact of the tour. First, they inflate averages. Bowlers who average 230 on house often don't even crack 190 average on a sport pattern. Second, they reward bad habits. Miss right, it wheels. Miss in, it holds. You don't learn breakpoint control or speed adjustments as fine as required on the PBA patterns. 3. They erase the skill gap. When everyone shoots 700, nobody looks special. When everyone shoots 300, there's no respect anymore. There's no rings, there's no responsibility or honor. That kills respect for the pro-level execution. Personally, I would compare house shot to playing on a lower rim in basketball. It's like dunking on 8 feet and calling yourself LeBron when you have a 2-inch vert. So what's the fix? Bowling centers need to unite with challenge pattern house shots. They don't have to eliminate old house patterns entirely, but they need to offer a harder, broader path for bowlers who want to improve. Maybe a universal pattern for house shot would be nice. Make it so that it shows the gap between everyone and the pros. And I think USBC could create a tiered pattern system for league play that would make it a little bit more sense. First, bronze level. This would feature a slightly harder house shot, and it would just be either longer, shorter, or difficult in some way. Maybe heavier oil, lighter oil, and less of a gradient. Next, silver level, which is a big jump, slightly harder, 8-to-1 or 6-to-1 ratios. And lastly, gold, PBA style with 3-to-1 or tighter ratios. And these could be technically house shot patterns, or you could have gold run with actual PBA patterns or some sort of official USBC pattern library. Or we could abandon it entirely and create a new governing body. That isn't really out the picture, as Bolero is just controlling everything. But encourage league bowlers to try the higher tiers. Normalize the idea that a 190 on gold might be a lot better than a 230 on bronze. Now, the final step once all of that is done is to rebuild the prestige and popularity. You have to make professional athletes look like professional athletes and create superstars again. Right now, PBA pros get little to no recognition. Maybe you might recognize Belmo if you're not a bowler, maybe Tackett or Prather if you're a little bit more involved. Remember when everyone knew who Earl Anthony was and it wasn't just bowlers? Yeah, bring back that kind of intensity into the modern league. Bring back the drama, give us some heartbreak, and give us humanity in the league again. Second, let rivalries be real. Stop policing emotions on the lane. Let the guys react, let them chirp, and let the intensity boil over a little bit much. We don't want robots, we want people with fire. Remember Sean Rash versus Belmo? Bring that type of intensity back into the game. Every great sport has rivalries. Jordan versus the Pistons, Serena versus Sharapova, Verstappen versus Hamilton. Bowling needs that again, and it's already there. Just let it breathe. None of this Vape Monty situation. And the big thing that I think everyone needs to recognize is we need to pay bowlers what they're worth. Say it clear, say it loud. Nobody wants to watch the best in the world compete for less money than a local golf tournament. Top finishers at some PBA events barely support their own tour life. Raise prize pools, get some real sponsors, and offer appearance fees. Partner with streaming platforms. Make being a PBA pro a legitimate career, not a side hustle to high-level bowlers. And for the love of God, add more tournaments, events, and create a reoccurring and consistent TV slot. This could happen with the introduction of CW with Fox's contract ending, but we won't know for sure until the new tour. And in my opinion, bowling doesn't need to reinvent the wheel. It just needs to remember what made it great. Being a challenging sport, showing clear separation between pros and amateurs, creating personalities and superstars that pop, conditions that test everything, and a community that values mastery. The pros are already elite, the system just doesn't show it very well. So how to revive the PBA? Make bowling hard again. Because what will happen when that happens? Bowling becomes respected, feared, admires, and once again, becomes much watched. But what do you guys think? What rule changes would you make if you wanted the PBA to become successful? This is just my thought. I theory crafted this after I got a comment, and a lot of people have been talking about that house shot situation. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below, and leave a like and subscribe if you'd like to see more. I make content like this just about every week, and that's all I've got time for today. See you guys next time.